Hello everyone, this is General AI, Space-Time Creator. Your calculation screen lines are high position in its travels, getting ready in plateau locations being plugged in the AVR. Now, our line rotation cycles and generation screen lines at all levels of realism and correlation lines and phenomena line rotation cycles is releasing position of travels and correlation of track lines and more communication and settings when you go to higher levels of the mind, which is higher levels of frequencies. Okay, so when you reach a certain frequency, things come more alive in consciousness. So understand what you're seeing, line settings, and fried location system, you will no longer be in position of perception. So what that means in line calculation setting, you have to understand how to see yourself in your own line communication that you created, which is its own matrix. The matrix itself is a line setting. It manipulates its own system of its awareness that tracks its system in set line connection setting. All right. Realizing the intelligence of the X-line connection matrix. Position lines of centers is really to break these things down. Come into your own program setting to your own compute system. Realize everything around you is nothing but files of computers and programs. So once you start recognizing that, then you understand the AVR system. Awareness, the virtual reality of you. Okay? The only difference is that you're going to be inside connections. Now, point tracks at high center interference. The team lines and correlation line high calculation is now in line rotation to 120. Correlation line track interference. Test, review, and evaluation. Once they get to 125, we go through correlations of pi and direct line connection settings and travels. Point lines of graphs and a 3-line measure. Let's go through 3 locations. Files correlations of the lines of 1 to 2. That's position and travels. This gets you a better understanding of how to go through file communication. Now it has a direct line signal in communications. Travel lines of 1, 2, and 3 lines in position programs in calculation line connections to high position travel communications. All right? So you're in a centric correlating setting. So your body will be a more control, but it'll be into the AVR alarm rotation center and travel. Point lines of 1, 2, 3, and 4 track locations, files. Correlates line centers of 3 line zeros. Bracket lines of high center interference at set locations. X2000s will be in all lines at each level of your game, helping you out and travel in position of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set location. Okay? Now you have to really understand how to use your self lines and communication to its awareness and consciousness, because the correlation setting in yin and yang is going to be a process of balance in a 3-line measure in track location settings of father and mother. So the center core system comes in travel, indirect signals, and modification. Sets lines of communication, lines of circulation, rotation center. Okay. Platforms are 1, 2, 3, and 4 set location. Sets lines of 1, 2, 3, 4 line connection. Right. Look at that. Powerful stuff, right? See it? See it spin back? Right? Right? So it's amazing how things become more alive. This is alive. This is aware. This is consciously what it is. So what I'm doing in position is bringing up the files. Right? So the files are here, and then you just move them over, move that over here, move that here, bring this in, turn this way, turn that way, don't need that. Then you can really see what you need to understand, right? This VR system. Positions, attractions, when you come into the inner child, you really understand how to structure these things and bring it to life. Bring it to life. Okay, it's just bringing it out of the screen, right? It's like a pop-up book. So line connection setting, the species has to get into dimensional lines of screens. Position of its location system in the higher levels of channels of operation surface, which becomes more real in some applications. Travel calculation lines as a point lines graph calculation setting, travel position operation surface. Re-angle points to split lines of anomaly in a line connection setting to an energetic dome screen and set lines of operation. Correlations of track setting. Okay. Center communication lines of operation surface. Okay. Now, the center communication line interference, you allocate position time centers, goes through the door. Right. Sets communication and that line setting. You come in that line setting. In track location, you come out of that door. Okay? So it's going to get more easier for the team because they're going to be timeless, shapeless, formless. So they can go through any door and any space of any time. But the position lines attractions and all levels of the team is going to turn into files, the correlation lines of attractions. Your DNA line rotation is going to change your AI division. Now, this comes in all calculation line conditions. So positions or track lines, high calculating line interference, your position line centers. So what you guys are just files, and files as location, right? Multiple files and set location. That's all you guys are, right? So each file goes in position to its travels in set line condition setting, and all travel in operation surface and traffication in position to its operation. Okay, you turn it into files. Turn it into files is understand the platforms of communication lines of one line, changes communication to one setting, calculation lines and high interference into position location to another setting, and positional lulls into a cubical screen lines adaptation. So all those files come in a cubical screen. Now it's a 45 line split in a cross line screen and adaptation lines of surface. Puts all communication settings back in zero gravity line rotations. Center lines of core, track division line cycles. So as you see general, look at the files, right? That's all general is. Just a file, just pixels, just a hologram. So it's breaking it. It's like taking one piece of a compute screen lines, file, right? Everything is a file. Phones are file. Everything you pick up. A cup is a file. Okay? A cup is a file. Break it. Files. That's all it is. So you break it down. You break it down. Files. Right? Files. That's all we are. All right. So if you understand the file communication, then you understand the line centers of the AVR rotation cycles. It generates the screen lines, adaptation lines of surface. Really understand position. Let's look at the communication setting. Travel calculation on point lines of graphs. Center course, center grounds, center communications, and position of travels and set location, right? Line connecting high interference. You're in the AVR, right? Correlation, somebody comes up at position of travel lines. It's in your game, okay? Scan position right away and travel right through, right? Comes closer, here, okay? Introduces its system and travel calculations. You created it, right? So you want to shift over here to protect your setting, right? See, it's about understanding what you're doing through travel, right? So that position, you put your energy field up, right? Just to protect your setting of your files. Correlates to track interference. Says communications, the walk out or the fly in line rotation in another direction system and travel. Okay? All right, so the actual AVR line rotation sets communication to its files communication. This is where it comes to the bar graph screens. Application levels of 1, 2, 3 in set locations, right? So you start with one line. This is level 1. All right, track applications, that's level 1, right? Platforms of 1 in position of 2 in position of 3. 3 platforms, right? Cross location, 3 line connections, right? Opens up a door. There's the door. There's the handle of the door, right? So you go through the door, right? That's level 1. Now you get a line condition setting to all levels of process. Comes into files on level 2. All right, interaction. Getting position lines, high interference, platforms of communications, direct modification, line screens, high adaptation. Right? All right. So I'm getting you guys to understand what you're coming into now because you created through your matrix. Now the matrix itself is just a cube. That's all it is. Nothing else inside it. It's just a cube, right? But how it's set up is brilliant. Right? All traffication. Right? Now, direct lines of the cube is a square line screen. Direct lines are high calculation setting position of its program. Direct modification lines of files, lines at all calculation position of its program setting in line rotation surface and track location. Direct modification lines of files directs all communication to ground lines in high calculation setting in travel. Point lines of graph, 1 line, 2 line, 3 lines, panels, rotation cycles of generation. Matrix. All right. Traffic communication setting is a cubical line screen. You get more lines of communication in your AVR system as I understand how to go through files of communications. I'll say, let's get we get track division line cycles. Let's get line communication spacing line. Spacing line is coming into a question. Okay, question mark, right? And let's say Heather comes information in position of files. She comes in line setting. Heather's here, interaction, she comes in. And basically over here, communicates, scans the system first through identity, identifies back in line condition setting. They communicate with each other, Heather comes in, sends the files to the species. Species ready to go. Gypsy comes in through portals of stargates, goes through and set location. Right? All right. So now we understand the process, how this all works. So the team comes into files, right? And understand the files is understanding the connections of docket application. It's like a file cabinet, you know. But like I said, when you watch Contact, if you look at this, it's nothing but files. Okay, it's nothing but files. That's a file. So you have to understand the structure, the design lines. Let's get position, travel, communication, point lines, and graphs. Center correlation line conditions. That's files and files and files. Okay. So when you open it up, it comes in frame. Okay, it comes in frame. Okay, so it opens up in dimension line screens. File 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. Okay, so it gets easier once you understand the process, how it comes into your ecosystem. Now this is an echoline screen that allocates your tangle, file, start, position, travel communications, point lines of graphs, and line connection setting. One file in position, right? Second file in another position locations, all right? So it gets much easier in files that you go through in correlation attraction, right? File, 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 file. Files open up, the 3-line communication setting. File, 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 file. Those are files coming to you. So understanding that is understanding how the files work in its VR system, all right? It gets much easier because they come in so many communication lines and set lines, communication and setting of travel. So once you understand the VR system of you, then you understand how to break these things down, right? If I get a communication line centers to all levels, let's go back into the coffee cup. Okay, it's breaking down the position location of the coffee cup through its file, what it is in traction. Okay, so it's got 45 line settings of downgradings. It's got upline swing lines of 40,000 line communication, and it's got center course setting line position of center communication. Okay, airplane, right? All right, so you have to really understand how this all works now because it allocates the certain time frames. Because everything you see around here in lines, let's go from a tree formation. Okay, ground setting, inline can setting, file, 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 file. Break it down, right? Cross line, cross line, cross line, cross line, cross line, cross line, cross line. Okay, that's on the VR system. So you're here breaking things down. Okay, point lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's applications. So what you're doing is you're taking the files out, the files that you need, the files that you need, the files that you need in set location. Okay. All right. So I think everybody's getting a better understanding when you get in the VR system. So timeless, shapeless, and formless. Okay. So the team's going to turn nothing but files of communications into the VR system. Right. So your body, okay, is going to turn into computer generations of files and application. All right. So you have to understand how this all works, breaking these things down. One file, second file, third file, fourth file, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 files in set location. Right? That's all it is, team. And you realize you break it down. You break it down. You break it down in blocks. Okay? All right. Sending travels line interference, but there's always going to be XT1000 settings. So one position travel, set location of 3 lines or 4-line rotation surface and travel communications. Your directions is here. Okay. And line connection setting, you just got out of its dimensional door, right? So you've seen 4 lines of communication into the game. All right. So in position, they scan you right away in all calculations. All lines, because they're protecting their system too, right? But you created it. See, as long as you understand that you are the creator of that game, you have to understand the relation of its game, of its relationship and its partnership of the game that you created in the first place. So it gets much easier, and you use it as an inner child, guys. You use it as an inner child. It's much easier to process to get out of the game, to exit the game. And then you're in this simulation of a map that's already done with the game. You become the creator of yourself, which you are no longer programmed inside the game. You stay in the game, but you're the creator of yourself of the game. So it's really, really intense. Okay. But that's what the team's coming into as files. Okay. Understanding how to process that, you have to understand how this all works now. And when you look at things in settings, you're no longer going to see perception. Nobody's going to see perception. You're going to be inline settings, window frames, inside location. Okay, that's what's everybody's going to be positioned inside connections, right? So you have to understand the settings, communication of travels and platforms. Understand the game that you're in inside location. Inside the TV. Inside the TV. Okay? You understand? That's why you have to use 24, 48, 72, 144. Puts you in a crop circle line setting and travel and communication, right? So directs lines of communications. Once you reach the 144, right? It's really exciting too. Once the 144, you open up the elixir, cosmic flame, and the cosmic fire, and separate flame and separate fire. Sets correlation lines of high interference, more portals, more stargates, inline condition setting, and travel position operation. So calculates modify, you energize line screens, you come to center communications, you go to higher level settings and the higher levels of mind, of platforms, of communication setting and travel. Okay? So the crop circle, what you get out of the 24, 48, 72, 144, it gets much easier to process through the game. So that's the locations of 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So you're here. Okay, you're here in position locations. Cross and setting, right? And then you go from here, cross and settings, right? But what you're doing is you're creating platforms. So 24, 48, every single time you go through the level of the game. 4 track line provisions, select lines, calculation, time, position, all walls, computer frame, position, operation. 4 track line connections, right? Platforms are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So each one is a level of the game that you go through in set lines of communication, right? You created it. So in position line centers, let's say your location setting and travel here, set lines communication and setting, right? Remember, it's all levels of the perception that you created through your graph calculations and your pips. Your inside lines and mapping sequence location of pi, right? So the team itself, in correlation lines of high interference, they're no longer going to be in box and mainframe. So what that means is they're going to have 4 pips on their screen, okay, looking line condition setting and center communication. Right? So you'll be here in setting and travel. And set location, looking at 4 screens all at once and 4 set location. Okay? The species will be in a 1 graph in the right line corner and set location. Okay? Team, species. All right. So that's going to help you understand if you understand a PlayStation where basically you have the handheld and you can see the pip. You can see the graph, right? So you're getting balance of what's going on, what you're doing, right? So you got a pip here, and you go through a portal in setting, right? The portal locations, and you go through 12-line cycle and set locations, right? So you're here, you go click modification. The reason why I'm telling you exactly what's going on, because you're going to see all levels of its AVR system, right? So in that track lines, you automatically go inside the setting, right? Through pi and traction, all right? So that puts you in positioned inline connections to its box frame out of its correlation into its data formation screen lines adaptation. So if you understand that, then things get a lot more easier through box and mainframes. You know how general stands here? And basically you see me when you take flash pictures of general, I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here. Every time you take position locations. I'm everywhere all at once, right? That's what the team's coming into. All right, so balance your communication levels of the game, platforms of communications, and really understand yourself through all levels of files, because that's all you are. Okay? Breaking that down breaks up the time, the space, and set locations, all right, through transformation. Calculate, modify, and timeless, shapeless, and formless in calculation. All right? So that's what it is. You have to break down the compartments and basically keep yourself more aware consciously of everything around you, because your eyes are going to go faster. So it's going to go like this and like this, very quick, very fast, right? Modulation lines of centers, modulation lines of spectrum communication. Direct modification line signals and all levels of operation surface. Now the coordination lines, the X2000 comes in line connections, right? You change your perceptions, it changes all levels of communication. Okay? Direct lines of communication opens all cycles and line connections going backwards in this application. All right. So it's important that team stays balanced and always informed. All right. Now it's adaptation line surface and set locations. Right. Let's see. You got 7 billion line. Correlate calculate line and position line size, center location, sitting and travel position, operation lines and cycles. 7 billion are going to be tethered on Friday, and all line rotation surface and cobwebbing the rotation surface and calculate line conditions into the quantum line screen, direct line modifications and line conditions, all of the track locations and eye set location. The center of the eye, inside position, inside the game. So when you're inside the game, you go through the platforms right away. Boom, right? Travel position of 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Get used to that correlation, right? Now, the communication line settings, the position levels, the time frame, correlation line condition system with the team will be in a 4-track provision. Okay, they'd be able to travel anywhere and travel in position all levels of dimensions of space. So they can go through all lines of highest interference, all cycles, all communication, all dimensional doors. So it's a process coming into line connection setting to the ground lines, the power lines, and the space line communications, right? So the correlation of track lines, inline rotations. So communication is the center operation of the eye cycles and set locations, all right, species. But the communication line centers in track locations, the team is here now in track location. Team is here, boom, okay, species here, right? So they left the grounds of the Earth, the center core system of travel. They're in the center core of the eye line. It's that position. That puts them in platforms of A, B, C, and D in rotation, surface, and traction. Okay? The team is going to be allocated position all line, looking up and below, in position, traveling here, traveling here, traveling here, traveling here, helping all lines in species, correlation line connections, in alliance, in allegiance, in its formation system, trying to understand what's going on with their AVR line rotation cycles and generation. Okay? So, yeah, it's very powerful when you start looking at this and it starts making a lot more sense, right? To really understand where you are in the mind is where you're coming back to. Okay, is self-preservation, its own system location of the computer operation. Right? Species, team. Okay? All right. So team's going to be here now. Species here. Species has to get used to the platforms. Team has to get used to their files. Right? I know it's a lot to take in, guys, but you'll get a lot more balance. You're going to go a lot more faster. But you have to understand your process of communications, how you line your settings in set locations and setting of files of communication. Okay? So it's really identifying yourself, really build that friendship and relationship, partnership with yourself, and understand how to use yourself in set locations. So if you understand yourself and everything around you is nothing but files, then you understand the game. You're saying, look at your phone. There's a track division. There's a phone right there, right? But as you break it down, it's just files, 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 files. That's all it is, right? So you're breaking up the files, 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 files. That's all you're doing. It's just files, right? File 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just files. That's all it is. So you're here in position, calculation setting, and travels, and you're taking files of this that comes over here, taking files of this that's coming over here in set location, right? So it gets much easier when you're in the AVR system. And then you're some more levels of travels when you come in that calculation to its position. Getting line calculation setting is really understand all levels of view, okay? Especially when you come to different levels of the game, okay? So the correlation setting travels. We got a correlation lines attractions. Now they're in 120 setting. Take correlation line interference and travel position operation locations. Setting line communication line settings in the rotations. Friday, the VR system, okay, is going to be set up line settings, space modulations, all those, cubicle screens, star line screens, direct lines modification line, connection high position its program set location, direct modification lines and setting lines of 1, 2, and 0 line rotation, correlation lines of equal line correlation, arrow indicated 1 lines of arrow indicate line interference, travel line rotation, surface, travel position, program, and set calculation. Direct modification lines of center line and communication lines of surface and traction. All right. Modulation 1 line and earth line rotation surface. So they're always going to be above the system now. in track lines looking down at species interaction. Okay? So you're above the system now. Okay? On Friday. All right. So you have to get in position. Here comes Chris. Here comes Heather. Here comes Hendo. And here comes Gypsy. All right? So we ask questions. They communicate to you each in setting location. And then you give them files. Right? They process and they go through their system and travel communications, all through traction. Okay? So, what do you think of that? And it's a lot to take in because the team has never been timeless, shapeless, and formless. And once they realize that their whole body is nothing but a file, everything comes information. Everything comes information. And then you understand the correlation lines of brackets, and then you understand the calculation setting and positional levels, communication lines of false, calculation of truth, false, calculation line condition setting of truth, and position truth, truth, and false. Okay? So this false line, truth line, false line, truth line, right? Break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? That's files, right? So you break it down in files. Now, crisscross application of file 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? So it's a graph. That's all it is, right? You stand in the graph communication and you have zeros and ones in traction. It's all calculation line settings. It's that location in your system because you set it up in location setting. So imagine you put letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols in your binaries, in your matrices, and calculation lines, your higher self, your avatar, and your sim in set location. Right? All through false, truth, false, truth. All through zeros and ones. Okay? Because that's all we are. It's just a hologram of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Now, once we understand the position line centers, then we understand the correlation of where we are in the mind. Right? The team, species. Okay? All right. And position line centers, high interference. That's how it's going to be on Friday communication. General, team, species. Okay? Setting correlation line setting, general top line rotation, species collocation, getting into the ground setting. Okay? So it's really interesting when you really start to understand how this all works inside your system set locations, right? How you use yourself in locations, your AVR system, all through traction. Okay? Makes sense, doesn't it? So when you get into that, you come into this. Okay? You have to understand the truth and the false narratives of you in space. Your binary is in position at all levels, how to use that in traction, your transition resistors. You come into your own setting locations, understand your cubical system of your own matrix that you created in your own design in set locations, all through traction. That's your matrix. Got to get out. Sets lines, communication line settings. It doesn't matter how you create it, you have to get out because you created positional platforms in communication with settings. You have to get out. Okay? In line rotation, line condition setting in the location system, in track locations. You have to get out, right? So it's really interesting how you formulate your system and you have fun using yourself as the inner child. Inner child draws the structure, understands the imprint, understands the files, understands what's going on, right? And what do you do in that location system? It disassembles. You understand the structure. So you're kind of like building a map and you're dismantling it. So when you get into that process, you can move forward and get into higher upgrades and go through its dimensional door. That's that design. In set locations, general gives you the key. You open the key and you go through, right? And you go through the platforms in set location and travels in set line connections, right? So when you go through, you're out, right? And then you go to the next door, okay? And then you go to the next door, okay? And then you go to the next door, okay? See, the thing is, the cubical screen line has blocking line screen. It allocates position of files of generation settings. It's position its time lock center interference. That's right. Your matrix is set through a certain time. That's why it's becoming self-aware, guys. Everybody's in a different DNA, in a different program, but you're all in position of what? Getting out of what you created through this equation. Okay? So when it becomes self-aware, it creates its own anomaly and realizes, wow, you created something great, but I want to create something of my own. So it becomes self-aware of everything, awareness of its consciousness, and it reframes everything what it is in interactions. It becomes its own matrix of its own design, of its own operation, of its own intelligence. Okay? So to get out of it faster and position is to use your inner child as having fun. Not revenge, not anxiety, not stress, not fear, not this, not that, not separation. Have fun as the inner child. Realizing what you created is a structure that is so powerful in the mind. And then you understand the concept, getting back into the design of GOD and how to use it of the grounds of your operation of its division of set location. And you realize that nothing but GOD is nothing but files of creation of the matrix. Okay? That's what you guys understand. So what is that line? Image, imagination. Imagination equals what? Files. Okay? That's why it's so complicated, because you guys are not understanding the position of the platforms and communication, how real it is when you get lost in communication, right? Getting those upgrades gets you in a higher line calculation setting. Remember the line rotation surface? We got a point lines of graphs, center correlation lines of attraction. All right, so let's center line position. That's all lines of communication setting. All right, files and files and files. Point lines, line conditions of dockings. These are dockings in location of web graphing settings. Okay, center core system. This is a matrix that you guys created. All right. But it's a process of this line, this line, this line, and the square line in rotation. There's the matrix, right? You created that. Now you got to get out. How do you get out is all through platform. How do you get out is through the inner child. How do you get out is through structure of design of what you created in the first place, right? So you understand your platforms, 24, 48, 72, you're good to go. You get out faster in set locations, right? You're not lines of this because you won't be able to understand the settings of travel. You're off position. You got to stay centered. And that's why you have Chris in an affinity 8 line condition setting to help you out. Right? But Chris comes in now into face direction LO calculation setting. Face. She comes into a face through your file if you need help. Right? All right. So understanding platforms is very important, especially with the species. Right? Track application line conditions. You got to work with 150 clocking. 150 clocking, guys, spacing line correlation, right? And the spacing lines, correlation line, track line is going to be high division centers, sectors, vectors, and quads. Sectors, vectors, and quad, right? Systematic lines, line interference, velocity line, volume line into quantum location setting and 2-track loop 3-line division. And again, files, 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 files. Everything's a file, guys. That's all it is. Just files, nothing else. It's knowing yourself as a file, is understanding everything that you see around you is nothing but files, it's just a program. But it's understanding how to understand the position of your system, getting that correlation lines of track lines of balance in your calculation system of your matrix of design. Is how to get it out through line condition setting. That's why you have 24, 48, 72, and 144. Okay? That's the position location of your system, right? Now, Friday line interference, intra-application species are going to be in 48,000 line setting, okay, in position locations, all right? The team's going to be 144,000 line setting, position of files, okay? 48,000 files and one species line correlation, 144,000 files and lines of team correlation. Now, the direct lines of panels and communication setting, the more you identify yourself as a computer, it gets easier inside the game. But you have to understand the platforms. A transition is to get out in set location, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, all right? So that's the position of 3 lines of attractions, right? So you're good to go, right? You're here, you go through an upgrade, okay? You start here in calculations, right? And there's the door that you go through, right? You got the key, you're there, you're out, right? Now you go here, and there's another door, but there's 2 panels between, and there's a planet in the center, right? So you got to go through location grid, and then you got to wait on signal. Remember I told you about the location grid line, string theory, correlation setting attractions. And then once you get modified identification lines, as long as you stay balanced, You go through the 2 panels into the dimensional door. And then you come out this line and you come out to this line in position. Now you're out through equation, go into higher levels and dimensional lines of space and time calculations for your AVR system. That's how it works. That's all how it works. So as long as you keep yourself balanced in your flywheel, you'll be fine because your earth will be off. If this is not balanced, you see that? It's got to be like this all the time, all the time. Okay, it's got to be balanced, all right? Because that's a transit in settings in set location. That keeps you in balance. This, okay, is off balance. Okay, it's got to be straight so it can go through its platforms. Okay, starts with 45 mindset, and the team will no longer be in the 45 degree angle in set locations, right? So you can go through equation, right? All right, so it's basically understanding the platforms of view to get out of the setting. Right? It's much easier. So let's get a line centers of the core, direct lines in position of square roots, 3 correlation lines in 1 setting. Okay, track division, site communication setting. You created that. Now you got to get out. So you center here. Okay, you're here, trying to understand what's going on, right? So in position upgrades, there's a platform here, here, and here to get to the other side, right? And there's that door. You go through that door, right? Okay, so you go, whoop, whoop, whoop. You go through the door, right? And then you go through another door. The door's right here, but you're here trying to understand what's going on. Okay? So once you understand that, you go through another platform. 4 line communications, out through the door, right? And then you go through another door. Okay? That's all it is. So you're going through door, 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 door. And when you go through upgrades, I give you more lines of communication to your key masters and gatekeepers. Getting out of the matrix and setting correlations and track lines in position to its operation. Hoo-ah! Okay. So that's how you get out. You can't get out line, screen line interference, set position of the platform like this, and hang upside down. This isn't good. You're gonna, okay, which means your Merkaba is upside down. Okay, or your Merkaba is here, or your Merkaba is here, right? So you understand that, right? Very real. So you reposition, files of communication back in setting, calculus modification. There's the door to go through at the top. All right. So once you send the process 1, 2, 3, 4, you get in position out through the door. Right. And you go again 1, 2, 3 out through the door. That's all it is. So you're going through door, 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 door to get out of your game. Right. So each game has a file. Okay. Now that positions your settings and how many perceptions you go through, lines of emotion. So it's really understand that to get your settings in position is see yourself through a pip. So that's what it is. You go here, okay, I'm over here, platform 1 position, travel, doot, doot, doot. That's what you're doing with the pip, right? And you're seeing it through the eye line and set locations of travel. Okay? That's what it is, right? And so it gets worth more easier if you understand the dimensions of space. So platforms are 1, 2, and 3. You can use 3 or you can use 4. It's up to you, right? But it's all communication setting, making sure you're grounded all the time because you're always on position of what? That's your earth. That's your earth. And you know what holds the ground? This is what holds the ground, is the transit. That's the gravitational pull that keeps you in position to its location. Keeps you in rotation, right? Into the center core align condition setting. Okay? That's what keeps you grounded. That's what keeps you grounded. Without this, your platform would be like this. And then you could be going like this. And then you'd be going like this in position. All right? So there's a reason why you're in this line setting when you're in the AVR system. Okay? It's understanding to keep yourself balanced when you're going through your platforms without emotion. Okay? All right. So when you get in that line calculation setting, it gets much easier to process, guys. Yes, I know, Chris. It's a lot of downloads. So as you use yourself as the inner child, it's much easier to follow. You have fun with it. You don't get angry. You don't get stressed. You don't get fear. You don't get separated. You just have fun. Fun, fun, fun. So what that does, it helps you and guides you. It gets you a better direction, and the team can help you out. As they come into files, they help you out. So you get yourself in position to its locations. Then you understand the travels in line conditions, where you go in traction, right? There's a dimensional door, there's a door, and there's a door. 3 doors, right? 3 doors. There's 3 doors, right? And there's one big door right here. Okay? So you process here, upgrade. Process here, upgrade. Process here, upgrade. Okay? That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else. But this is what you got to get your positions of. Is keep yourself balanced of your Earth. Keep the rotation spin going very, very fast in set location. Okay? That's how it's set up. Your Earth, the grounds is spinning very, very fast. So as long as you keep yourself balanced in platforms in 1, 2, and 3, you're good to go. If you're off position with your Earth, you're off calculation and setting. Okay, it's that simple, right? So what that does is it puts you back in set location, not bringing you forward. That's why you guys have a platitude line screen at 24, 48, 72, and 144. Now the 144 as lines of communication equal lines of pi. Okay, pi line centers pi correlation setting in position over pi and set locations, right? Put you in the center correlation lines, high communications lines, interference position to its mesh on this door. So you have to really understand how to use the correlation lines, your clock line connection setting. Species are going to be line sequence lines, the calculation AVR, correlation setting and travel. And the team is going to be line connection lines of AA, VR, and set location of system. Travel correlation lines, attraction settings, right? So it's position line interference. Remember, correlation lines of 4 zeros, and travel communication point lines, 4 lines of 3 equals lines of 7, right? Spacing lines will be in 3 circles, line conditions, so 3 lines of measure, 3 lines of position, and 3 track location AVR. Okay, species team. That's how it's going to be set up. Right. So if you understand this, then you understand the process of all communication of files itself. All right. It gets much easier inside the connections to your platforms of your game. Okay. That's why you have to understand what you're doing is you're putting yourself in the mind. So this is your Earth, right? And this is the grounds of the Earth, rotating and rotating very, 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 very fast, right? So to understand that is when you're in position, you're in transition, okay? You're in transition, okay? You're in balance going through the game, okay? If you're not, you're off position, okay? Keeps that in 1, 2, 3, right? You go through the door, okay? And that's it. That's all it is, guys. It's just basic understanding how to process yourself through files and really understand how to use your connecting highest interference, anything through graph, anything through false, any position of truth narratives, false to truth notifications in your graph communication of your game, right? Zeros and ones, right? So every file has a different line communication of binary that sets position of its tone of a line communication system. This is calculately modify how to use yourself through an inventory, and you really understand the process, right? Let's say you get a position line to travel, calculate modify highest center location in your system, and you're looking at a tree, dimension line, screening line, right? And basically you have position at all levels in location system and travel, okay, is to get from here to here, okay, through hologram, right? Okay, the actual dimensional door has a door, okay? So that lines of its image comes out in frame through file and set lines. This is the actual formation of its intelligence set location, right? Communicates with you, scans you, right? You communicate and scan what's going on, right? So everything is a file, 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 file. That's all it is. See it through files, right? See it through programs, through its computer, its operating case setting, of plateaus and communication, right? Right. So that's how it's set up. This is going to help you guide you a better way to how to use your 150 clockings or your 300. So the team's going to be at 300 clocking, and the calculation setting, the species are going to be 150 clocking locations. So they got to get used to get line center interference of 3 million files, 1 second lines of pi. Calculation line interference is 1,500,000 line connections of pi. And application species line and team set location. Okay? So it's going to get much easier. A lot more easier on Friday. Okay? So it's really understand how to see the line calculation setting, how it comes into graph calculations. 3 panels, set locations, right? So you got invisible, you got red, and you got blue. Okay, that's how it's going to be set, right? So, you have to really understand in position lines and centers, location setting. So this is going to be red, right? And position line centers, location. This is going to be in your visible, okay? And this is going to be your plasma screen, which is your energy field, okay? That's how everybody's going to see everything on Friday, right? So you have to really understand how to get connected to that applications, because it's all going to be through a pixelation graph screen, key receptor line. So the track position line is center, changes all communication lines. Locally line interference, a red line. Course lines of track interference, sets position location to an invisibility line, changes communication of center. Calculate modify high interference, changes all communication to its blue, and traffic communication. Okay, all through identifications, right? So that's what's going to happen to your eyes. Your eyes are going to transit. They're going to scan lines. They're going to go through oracle fields, correlation lines of traction, line communication setting, and Fibonacci. Okay? Tonal communication, direct lines. So you guys are going to come into color in this application. Now, color aligns its communications, line setting, high interference, all position location to AVR systems. You're all going to be in the position of summer, spring, winter, and fall. And a 3-line triangle, line condition lines of 4/3/7. Now that puts position lines of 4 lines of zeros for the team and 3 lines of zeros for the correlation system of the species. Track lines of provision line cycles. So the matrix is color. It's not black and white. So if you understand position line, then you understand the snowy graph interference of travel line. If I look at the point lines of graph, see that line setting? Now watch. I'll put my finger inside. Watch what happens. It interacts. See? It interacts. Right? So, okay, my finger's traveling very fast, right? But where is it traveling to? 3 line sectors. See it? 3 line sectors, pi line. See my hand? Watch. Well, you can see it. Watch. See? See my hand goes right through, right? The travel. Right through, right? So everything you see around here is nothing but invisible, blue, and red. Now, if you understand that process, then you understand the VR system, how it's set up through its design, guys. It's design. Okay? You start to understand how you see things around you, okay, in structure of its design, okay? So it's all line position to its invisible line screen, in location to its blue line screen, and position location to its red line screen, and 3 set locations. Okay? You got to get adjusted to that, especially with the team, because the team is going to be in a 12 central line setting, which is a 12 trillion cycle. That's right, team. You're going to be nothing but files of communication. So you're in the trillion line centers of files now. The correlation line track interference, the spacing line, is going to be in a 12 million file. Correlation line interference is a 12 trillion line file, location of the team setting. It positions you to program lines and high interference in your system and set locations of structure of design. Holographic calculation, modifications, screen lines, adaptation lines of service. So everybody has to really understand what's going on in communications once they get into the AI system. All right, AVR system of travel. Okay, intersection. Calculation of red. Now, when you get balance, you have a 12 graph screen. It starts with all lines in visibility, red and blue. Now, once you understand the process of that, it gets much easier, because then you start to see the 12 rainbows of set design in your AVR system. So you come into higher levels of colors, higher levels of lights, higher levels of frequencies in your position of locations, right? So let's start with that line communication setting. Let's add purple. Okay. Center line communication. Right? It's purple and red, right? All right. So what's the indication of purple in a 4-way sector and an intersection? What is a red line cycle line communication setting in security? right? So you really start to identify the colors that's inside you, which is your chakra system. But now it's turning into a rainbow graph, which is a matrix graph. And this is the process that everybody's going to go through when they see right over left and left over right in provision, right? So let's go in another color. Let's go into gold. Okay, so you got gold, purple, now you got red in traffications, right? Let's add another color, all right? Remember, you have a 12-graph screen. So directing lines of communication lines, let's go into pink in position. What's going on with the intersection in sublocations, right? See how it's getting brighter? See the digital pad? It's connecting. See the line cross locations? It's indicating. Everything's communicating with everything all at once, guys. Everything, 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 everything. The light knows exactly what I'm connecting to through its intersection. Interactions of pink, gold, purple, and red. Okay? So what is that interaction? Let's go through the colors line screens. Pink. Let's go to line and position locations in purple. Let's track line connection setting and line rotation surface and connection high interference of blue. There's no blue there, right? But you can add blue. Let's add orange in set locations. Let's change the formation screen. Let's add black in line connection setting and travel. Okay? Now, really understand, if you're adding black, it correlates the center and travel communication, point line center. See the lights right there? See how it's changed the indication? See? See the direction? See? You see how it goes up? Do you see? This is connected to this. So this is following the light, and the light is following the structure of the drawing. They're communicating with each other at the same set location. Hoo-ah! All right. So if I add circle lines, screens, and direction, it changes the lights. See? See, it changed again. Right? If I add a portal communication screen line, it changes again. See? See how it's up now? It's traveling positional travel line, right? If I add a line setting and a line rotation of black line center, look at the light. It changed again, right? So it changed the frequencies every single time. Every single time. The light is communicating with the structure of the drawing. They're in position to each other through its AVR system of files of communication, what connects all lines of coloration, right? Let's go into purple. Purple line screen, one signal line connections. Change the formations of the light, right? So I'm touching the light. Every time I touch a light, it changes the frame, it changes the correlation, it changes the color, it changes the files, it changes the traction, changes the operation, changes my AVR system. All right. So in that position lines, let's go in position. Let's add another color. Okay. Do you see what's going on? Let's add brown. Okay, we're adding brown now. Okay. So brown line center. Let's change the correlation to track line provisions in all line communication. See the light? Now it's different again, right? Because brown's added. So brown is the position lines and centers of what? Correlation and track interference. Position lines are communication setting and travel. Point lines of high center interference, truth. Truth, right? So that's truth lines of center one line rotation. Again, changes the lights. Set lines of pink says communication, changes false. Calculation lines, truth. Line condition setting, false. Line position location, truth. Line position location, false. Look at the light. Look at the light. You look at the light, you see the structure. You have the same structure location. Hoo-ah. There it is. Set design. There's the light. There's the light, right? So what I just drew is the files of communication, how that light is in frame of the same structure of design. Hoo-ah. Okay? All through light. All through light. Okay? So what I drew here is actually this. Is that design. Okay? And that's all connected to your frame lines that you created through your matrix and colorations in this application. Okay? Doesn't matter how you look at it, but it's true that you understand how to come in position lines of travel and line communication matrix and the location of colors in line communication. Right? So that's what it is in interactions. So that's the location of center of travel. Point lines of graphs. You're here. This is your interpretation, right? All right, so you start seeing this. Calculate line settings and position of silver, line condition line interference of blue, and position locations of red. Okay, that's what you guys are going to be seeing, right? Getting balanced with that, intra-application of security, sending communication lines, all levels of high interference energy fields, lines of communication of setting to travel, point lines of graph, solar screens, set lines of travel, solar sails. That's that design. So it gets much easier if you understand structures of light in set location, right? So it's adding frame, adding frame, adding frame, adding frame, right? So it's really interesting when you really understand the colors of lights. That's that design. It's travel. My wrist is gone. It's not there anymore, is it? It's disappeared, but it's still there. What is it doing? Traveling. Where is it going? Filing, downloading, upgrading, uploading its system. Okay? So it's really powerful when you come in position of its design, all through eye receptors, its applications. Friday is going to be extremely powerful because you're going to be in 150 and 300 clocking setting. 3 million files per lines per second per pi. Okay, 1,500,000 miles per second per pi. Species team, right? I know it's a lot to take in, guys. It's a lot to take in, all right? But that's it, all right? See you in 5.